please join me in prayer? God of righteousness, grant us your life-giving presence. Guide us in our time of worship and celebration, and remain with us as we step out into the world, that we may face injustice with courage and love. May we come to see that the end we seek is a society at peace with itself, a society that can live with its conscience. The timing may feel off, the end of the road may seem out of sight, yet we trust in your holy presence. And together we ask with Dr. King, how long? Not long, because no lie can live forever. How long? Not long, because we still reap what we sow. How long? Not long, because the arm of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. How long? Not long, because you are our God, and we all may take refuge in the shadow of your wings. In the name of the God of justice, amen.
But once again, we welcome you to our celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., a man of great stature and a man with humble thought and presence. A man that was all about tearing down walls of injustice and segregation rather than building up walls of separation. So today we pause for a moment to celebrate his greatness and to celebrate his legacy and to celebrate his vision and to continue the dream. I want you to do something with me, if you would be so kind, very briefly. And that is, I'm a member of a Black Baptist church, and we do what we call a call and response from time to time. And so I'm going to call something out, and I want you to respond by repeating after me, if you would be so kind. If you cannot fly, then run.
If you cannot fly, then run.
If you cannot run, then walk.
If you cannot run, then walk.
If you cannot walk, then crawl.
If you cannot walk, then crawl.
But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward.
You have to keep moving forward.
So we welcome you today to Liberty Celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King. I would like to recognize some friends of mine before we go any further that have been truly, truly faithful and loyal in supporting us. Not only do they come themselves, but they bring children every year. And that is the Hope Center of USA. If I could get you to stand and if we would applaud them and recognize them, I would truly appreciate it. Please stand to your feet.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of William Jewell College, welcome. Thank you for celebrating this important day of optimism, advocacy, and reconciliation for our community. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. envisioned what he called the beloved community, a society in which justice and equality flourish, and all people live alongside one another with a shared sense of commitment and hope. Today, my friends, William Jewell College is grateful once again to host the Northland's annual Martin Luther King Day celebration, or indeed our moment every year in which the beloved community comes alive and is celebrated on our campus. Dr. King led the civil rights movement that transformed this country, but today and every day we must remember that it was the people who walked with him and the people who continued to walk when he no longer could, who carried the movement into the 21st century. Let us celebrate today all that has come before, but let us also remember today that we too walk with Dr. King, that we too carry the responsibility and the privilege of working toward that beloved community we all know is possible.
I wish you good morning as well. I'm Lyndall Brennan, Mayor of the City of Liberty, and I bring you greetings. Actually, my notes say warm greetings, but that doesn't seem appropriate this morning. I bring you greetings on behalf of the citizens of Liberty. We are honored and proud this 35th annual celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life is part of the fabric of who we are as a community. It is customary for the mayor to bring an official proclamation, but before I do, I'd like to make a few very brief comments. To quote the Reverend Joseph Fort Newton, "To be happy is easy enough if we give of ourselves, forgive others, and live with thanksgiving. No self-centered person, no ungrateful soul can be happy, much less make anyone else happy. Life is giving, not getting." Certainly, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave of himself, confronting prejudice, hate, and violence. He forgave others with unfathomable grace and patience. He lived with thanksgiving, confident in the righteousness of equal freedoms and equal rights for all persons. Dr. King was a selfless person, insisting on civility, instilling hope, and bringing much happiness to others. His life was the epitome of giving, not getting. There is still much work to be done in overcoming oppression and discrimination, whether it be race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, or sexual orientation. There is still much work to be done by us. As we continue the work of equality for everyone, hold these words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. close to your heart and soul. And I quote, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. So friends, be not silent. Just as we sang a few moments ago, lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty." A proclamation of the City of Liberty. Whereas the City of Liberty acknowledges the magnanimous contributions made by those Americans who work with undying dedication to obtain the equal and impartial treatment of all Americans without consideration of race, gender, age, religion, national origin, or political affiliation. And whereas Dr. Martin Luther King is esteemed for advocating the principle of equality of all persons and social change through the peaceful communication of ideas and principles. And whereas over 50 years ago on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Dr. King passionately delivered his famous speech, "I Have a Dream," prompting the 1964 Civil Rights Act. He dreamed of an America where all citizens would be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. He dreamed of America where we would all enjoy an oasis of freedom and justice. And whereas this day is designated as a holiday for all Americans, and citizens of liberty are encouraged to observe this day, as well as every day, as a day of peace and civil unity, as an opportunity to build bridges between races, cultures, and groups. And whereas those within the Liberty community wish to honor the memory of Martin Luther King Jr. as a world-renowned advocate of nonviolent social change and a defender of the rights of freedom, equality, and dignity for all races and people, now therefore, I, Lyndall Brenton, Mayor of the City of Liberty, Clay County, Missouri, do hereby proclaim Monday, January 21st as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the City of Liberty, and I urge all citizens to seize the opportunity of this day to reflect and remember the message of peace given by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and to celebrate the impact it continues to have on each of our futures. So with this, I'd like to present this to Mr. Byrd, the chair of this event.
On behalf of the ML King Committee, I present to you a slice of a day in the life of ML King. At 9:30 a.m., King went to the court to watch the proceedings. The city, Birmingham, had made a tactical error. Instead of charging Rosa Parks with a misdemeanor of disobeying a police officer, they had charged her with violating a 1947 segregation law. When Rosa Parks was declared guilty and fined $10 and $4 in court cost, blacks had a clear-cut challenge to the segregation that they could appeal all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Following the hearing, King, E.D. Nixon, Ralph Abernathy, and Reverend E.N. French discussed the need for an organization to guide the protest and the agenda. Structure drives behavior. I repeat, we know that structure drives behavior. Abernathy suggested a name, the Montgomery Improvement Association, and the others agreed. They also decided to offer a few tentative demands: black bus drivers for predominantly black routes, seating on a first-come, first-served basis, with blacks being seated from back to front, and last, more courteous drivers. Now at 3 p.m., the original organizers, King, Nixon, Abernathy, and French, met with Reverend Bennett to plan for a mass rally at Holt Street Baptist Church. The group adopted the MIA as its name, and then Bennett asked for nominations for officers, and King was nominated for chairman. And although he was somewhat surprised, he accepted the nomination and was unanimously elected. M.L. King and the original organizers realized the value of these three-word phrase: structure drives behavior, structure changes behavior. Welcome to you to this Martin Luther King event on today. God bless you.
Good morning. My name is Michael Williams. I'm the current president of the Black Student Association.
I'm Brittany Lattimore, secretary of the Black Student Association here.
I'm Tayel Temple. I'm the treasurer of the Black Student Association here.
And on this morning, we are going to read you a collection of microaggressions that various Black students on our campus have come across. And each of them will be followed by a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King that will remind us why we should keep moving forward.
So, you're a coach? Use me, God. Show me how to take who I am, who I want to be, and what I can do, and use it for a purpose greater than myself.
Can I touch your hair? Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity.
I knew you would know that song. Never succumb to the temptation of bitterness.
You don't look like a biology major. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward.
I just feel like Black people are inferior to white people. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
You can't like Evanescence. Why? Because I'm Black? Yes. We must build dikes of courage to hold back the flood of fear.
You're pretty smart for a Black person. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education.
You're pretty for a dark-skinned girl. Only in the darkness can you see the stars.
Is that a we? You would change your mind, you would change your looks, you would change your smile, laugh, in ways. But no matter what, you will always be you.
Is your hair real? Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend.
Can I say the N-word? Lightning makes no sound until it strikes.
With that afro, you really look like Diana Ross. We must learn to live together as brothers, or we will perish together as fools.
Wait, you're Black? We may have all come on different ships, but we're in the same boat now.
I don't listen to your music. What's my music? Like rap music? Almost always the creative, dedicated minority has made the world better.
I didn't know you were smart. I came to the conclusion that there is an existential moment in your life when you must decide to speak for yourself. Nobody can speak for you. With that, we hope that you all received the message. And finally, we wanted to end with one quote from Dr. King. He said, "All progress is precarious, and the solution of one problem brings us face to face with another." That in mind, just keep note that change is slow, and we must always keep moving forward to make change happen.
God is my protection. Yes, God is my all and all. God is my light in darkness. Oh, yes. God is. He is my all and all. God is God is. He's my all and all. God is my today and tomorrow. Oh, yes. God is. He is my all and all. God is the joy and the strength of my life. He moves all pain, misery, and strife. He promised to keep me, never to leave me. He's never ever come short of his word. I've got to fast and pray, staying in their way. I've got to keep my life clean each and every day. I want to go with him when he comes back. I've come too far and I'll never turn back. God is. God is. God is. God is. God is my all and all. God is the joy, the strength of my life. He moves all my pain, my misery and strife. He promised to keep me, never to leave me. He's never ever come short of his word. I've got to fast and pray, stay in the narrow way. I've got to keep my life clean each and every day. I want to go with him when he comes back. I've come too far and I'll never turn back. God is, oh, God is, God is, God is, God is my all and all. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. God is. God is my all and all. Yes. God is my all. God is my all and all. Hallelujah. 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 Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
I believe she knows what she's singing about. All right, all right. Hey, appreciate you. That's the Lady Diane. Beautiful. We've now come to the portion of our celebration where we begin to recognize those who have made a meaningful contribution to our community and to this society. In Dr. Martin Luther King's speech in 1968, the one that we know so well about, I've been to the mountaintop, the one he delivered in Memphis, Tennessee on April the 3rd. There's a portion in that speech that's not quoted very often, but I feel is extremely appropriate for this opportunity. And it goes as this: let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. And let us move on these powerful days, these days of challenges to make America what it ought to be. We have an opportunity to make America a better nation. These folks that we are recognizing today have taken that opportunity and grabbed hold in order to make America a better nation. And so as we present them to you, we encourage you to encourage them through your applause and through your adoration. Thank you.
Good morning. Martin Luther King said that everybody can be great because everybody can serve. And he also believed what Gandhi said, that you be the change that you want to see in the world. That's my philosophy on life. I can only be the change that I want to see. And the people that are standing here today are movers and changers in their communities. They have served, they are public servants. And this morning we want, King said you have to, stars shine only in the dark. But we're going to let these stars shine today as we look at the kinds of contributions that they have made to make a change in our society. The first Community Service Award goes to retired Commander Carlton G. Philpott. Would you please stand beside me? Thank you. Thank you. Commander Philpott is a retired U.S. Navy commander, a 25-year veteran whose life has been involved in being the change that he wanted to see in the world. There are so many firsts, and one of the things that he has done throughout his career is to make change in Fort Leavenworth for all the world to see 6 monuments dedicated to African American firsts that you have read this morning in the program. The one that he has just helped with his committee to dedicate was the 688, the 6888 monument to African American women, the first battalion of African American women to serve in World War II. A postal battalion that sorted all the mail, millions, over 7 million or even more pieces of mail, so that the soldiers during World War II could hear from home and get packages that your families were sending. I was in Leavenworth for that dedication, and I won't talk very long, but I must say that out of the 800 women who were a part of that battalion, there were 5 living, and those 5 women were there, and I got a chance to drive a couple of them around. They were all in their 90s. The monument is there for everyone to see. Not only that monument, but all the other monuments that are there, including the Buffalo Soldier one. Not only has he done that with the monuments at Fort Leavenworth, but he has also spent 29 years working with young people with the Rotary Club for 6th through 8th graders. Commander Philpott, you are truly making a change in society, and thank you for all that you have done. Let us commend him. I'd like to recognize Dr. Leroy Seat. Someone asked, why do we need missionaries? Well, We need missionaries to carry out the great commission that God gave us. And Dr. Leroy Seat and his wife June were two of those people who have done that throughout their lives. And they are continuing to do that. Not only on a local and regional level, but on an international level. Dr. Seat was the chancellor at Senongakuin University in Japan, where he worked with the Japanese students, and he worked with Korean students, and he carried out that great commission. And of course, a part of that great commission is to love one another as your brother and as your sister. And so Dr. Seat not only has carried out his commission internationally and on a local level, what he is doing now in his senior years is carrying out that mission of social justice through his blog. And if you will note, it says that he has done over 700 blog articles, many of them directly related to peace and justice issues. I want to say this to those of you who are sitting here today. When you say, what can I do? Well, now all of you young people and all of you middle-aged people and wherever you are all now holding in your hand probably your cell phone. You are probably all on social media. You can make a change. You can make a difference. The world can hear you if you just get on there and type up your messages and what people need to do and ought to be doing and all of those kinds of things. I just had a friend who had a birthday party and she invited me to come, and one of the things she asked for her birthday was, would you contribute to autism? What did I do? I got my little PayPal, went on, made my little contribution. Everyone in here can make a contribution. Don't say you can't. No one even has to see it or know it. So, Dr. C, we recognize you today for being the change that you want to see in the world. Thank you.
It is my honor to present Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Service Awards to 3 servant leaders who have taken Dr. King's words, used them as inspiration, and most importantly, turned them into action. The Boswells, Jane and Rick. Jane is recognized for her commitment to many things across the Liberty community, including the Corbin Theater, the Liberty Civic Theater, the Inasmuch Food Pantry, historic Downtown Liberty, Inc., Meals on Wheels, Liberty Arts Commission, and the Northland Animal Welfare Society. Rick, not wanting to be outdone by his wife, also is a long-term volunteer on behalf of this community in such aspects as Inasmuch Food Pantry, Liberty Hospital Board, Salvation Army Christmas Drive, Commissioner for the Planning and Zoning Commission of this city, and Freedom House. And we thank you both for all of your commitment to the Liberty area. Michael Williams, a junior at this wonderful institution of William Jewell College, is a biology and act-in major. She is president currently of the Black Student Association and a member of the Student Diversity and Inclusion Work Group. Somehow, she finds time to be assisting in 2 offices on this campus, the nursing department and student life. She is conducting meaningful research in areas of cancer, and her aspiration is to earn a PhD, and let me see if I can pronounce this, cellular and I practiced this too, cellular and molecular biology, or cancer biology. And we will watch her progress because she hopes to find a cure for cancer. Will you please join me in welcoming and thanking both of these folks?
The Dodd family migrated to Liberty, Missouri from Bowling Green, Kentucky in 1906. Jesse Dodd Sr. began his education at Garrison School, the first public school for African American students in Liberty, Missouri. He graduated the 8th grade, the highest grade achievable at Garrison prior to the 1940s. Jesse entered the work world assisting his father, Robert Dodd, on a farm east of Liberty on Route 10 highway. However, Jesse did not find happiness working on a Missouri farm. Looking for a different career, he took a job with the Hicks Cleaners on Missouri Street in Franklin, very near the square. When Mr. Hicks died, Jesse had already become a highly skilled professional in his craft, both in dry cleaning, laundry processing, and equipment repair. He desired to own his own business. Mr. Hicks' widow sold the business to a person with limited familiarity in the industry, and within 6 months, that individual relinquished the cleaners back to Mrs. Hicks. Jesse made an offer to Mrs. Hicks that she accepted, and she also agreed to serve as a seamstress for the new Michigan Cleaners. Not only did Jesse establish a successful business that operated for more than 25 years, but it also provided work for 6 of his 10 children: Grace, Alice, Georgianne, Jesse Jr., Wim Robert, and Patrick, and employment for other African Americans in the community. As the Liberty community began to expand further from the city center and established new shopping districts, Jesse closed his business and new dry cleaning businesses began to compete, thus reducing his margin of profit. Mr. Jesse Dodd demonstrated that a black man could establish a successful business in then what was a highly segregated society and continue that operation in the dawning of the civil rights movement. I present this posthumously, the Liberty, Missouri Martin Luther King Jr. Outstanding Public Service Award to his daughter, granddaughter, and great-granddaughter on this date, January 21st, 2019.
Ourselves and the whole Dodd family, we are honored to accept this. And my grandpa would be proud. Thank you.
It is now my honor and privilege to present the Invictus Award for Social Justice. The Invictus Award was originated by a great South African, Nelson Mandela. And he did that to present a humanitarian award. And we're here to celebrate a humanitarian at heart, Anita L. Russell, who is the recipient for the Invictus Award for 2019. Anita currently serves her 4th term of the National Association of Advancement of Negro People, the NAACP, Board of Directors. She currently has recently completed her 16th year of service as the president of the Kansas City, Missouri chapter of the NAACP. Anita vows herself to be the change that she would like to see in others through her own personal commitment that to whom much is given, much is required, and that service is the rent that we pay for living. Anita played a very important role as a foot soldier in the picketing of the Kansas City department stores, restaurants, movie theaters, public utility companies, corporations, to break down the Jim Crow barriers during the civil rights era. She's not stopped her commitment to being that change. She currently serves with the Jackson County Freedom Wall Commission. She has completed 2 terms with the community-based Anti-Drug Tax Combat Commission. She served 6 terms on the 16th Judicial Circuit Commission for Jackson County. Anita is committed to being a social change, the change that she would like to see in others. It is with great honor and a privilege that we present the Invictus Award for Social Justice to Ms. Anita Russell, NAACP President Emeritus.
Thank you so much. This is really a great honor. and a surprise. And I'm just really honored to have been chosen. But also, I'd like to say that I accept this on behalf of all of the unpaid volunteers who have dedicated their lives to making a difference. And to the young people here, especially, I say, give back. Once you have completed your education and you are joining the working world and all, don't forget to give back. That is so important. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Gina Lane. I'm the chair of communication and theater here at William Jewell College. And for 27 years, I served as Jewell's debate coach. And it's in that context that I have such fond memories of our speaker this morning, Ms. Lilia Tosin. Lilia is here with members of her family and her parents and family and friends and her son Malcolm. And so I know that they are looking forward to hearing her words, as I know all of us are. I'd like to start with a quotation from Coretta Scott King. "Women, if the soul of the nation is to be saved, I believe that you must become its soul." When I read these words, I thought these words exemplify the life and character of our speaker, Lilia Tosin. Lilia is a 2007 graduate of William Jewell College. I'm not sure how that's possible, but I do remember all the way back then, the very first day I met Lilia. I had heard that she was a strong-willed, incredibly intelligent, outstanding speaker. But I was not prepared for the combination of laughter, confidence, ease, and care that she brought to William Jewell College. It was a care for others that she did not give away easily, but was fiercely protective of once given. And yes, she was fierce. I got to know Lilia that day as we mutually decided that she would be a member of our debate team, but little did I know how fierce she was going to be. She was competitive. Every round mattered. And the careful preparation, intelligence, and persuasion that she brought to every debate round paid off. While I often told our debaters that they needed to speak with more confidence and presence, I never had to say that to Lilia. She brought it from day one. And by her sophomore year, now I want you to think about this, her sophomore year, her second year in college debate, she made her presence known around the nation, winning round after round and bringing home the top speaker award at the National Parliamentary Tournament of Excellence as a sophomore. But yes, she was just that great. But you see, debate was more than just winning to Lilia. It was a calling. I remember well when she came to me and said she wanted to write a debate case to advocate for the restoration of felon voting rights after prison. That case was nearly unbeatable in debate rounds. And then this last November, when the people of Florida had to pass a ballot initiative to restore those rights and do what their politicians would not, I thought to myself, Lilia, you just chalked up another win. Lilia was a political science major here at Jewell, and she said that her classes prepared her for the wide variety of audiences and perspectives she would have to face in the practice of law. She always knew that she wanted to go to law school, so it was not surprising when her LSAT score and her grades sent her to NYU, one of the top schools in the nation. Today, Lilia is an outstanding attorney for the state of New York, working as an assistant attorney general in civil rights cases for the Social Justice Division. The fierce advocacy that she honed at Jewell is now helping others. Most recently, Lilia was a key member of a team in the Attorney General's office that won an important fight against the Trump administration's attempt to shut down New York as a sanctuary city for immigrants. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce a fierce advocate for justice and a woman who is one of those souls fighting for our nation, Ms. Lilia Tosin.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Gina, for that introduction, and thank you all for being here today to celebrate Martin Luther King Day with us in the Northland. Thank you also to William Jewell College for hosting this celebration and for inviting me to speak. I owe an additional and special thank you to William Jewell as my alma mater for allowing me during college not just the space to think about my studies in preparation for living a good life, but also for giving me space and the imperative to think about living well, valuing myself, my friends and my family, and my relationship with God. Before I delve into my remarks today, I do have to give a disclaimer that while we have a Black woman Attorney General in the state of New York, I am not her, so any of the views I express today are solely my own. I thought a lot about those views today as I considered the theme for the celebration, 400 years of perseverance and survival, the dream lives on. As you may know, the theme commemorates the 400th anniversary of the arrival of the first 20 Africans who were brought to Virginia to be enslaved in 1619. What a meaningful anniversary it is to recognize, and one that so resonates today. Dr. King, when speaking about the condition of African Americans in this country, once said, "Abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up in the destiny of America. Before the Pilgrim Fathers landed at Plymouth, we were here. Before Jefferson etched across the pages of history the majestic words of the Declaration of Independence, we were here. Before the beautiful words of the Star-Spangled Banner were written, we were here. For more than 2 centuries, our forebears labored without wages. They made cotton king. They built the homes of their masters in the midst of the most humiliating and oppressive conditions, and yet, out of a bottomless vitality, they continued to grow and develop. And indeed, the resilience and contributions of Africans and African Americans throughout the United States, despite the impact of slavery and racial discrimination over the course of those 400 years, is nothing short of miraculous. Dr. King recognized this over and over, once saying, and this is a long quote, but I think it's worth listening to. In 1863, the Negro was granted freedom from physical slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation, but he was not given land to make that freedom meaningful. At the same time, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the Midwest and the West, which meant that the nation was willing to undergird its poor white peasants from Europe with an economic floor, while refusing to do the same for its Black peasants from Africa who were held in slavery for 240 years. And this is why Frederick Douglass would say that emancipation for the Negro was freedom to hunger, freedom to the winds and rains of heaven, freedom without roofs to cover their heads. It was freedom without food to eat, without land to cultivate. It was freedom and famine at the same time, and it is a miracle that the Negro has survived. I would go even further than Dr. King and say that it is a miracle that the Black community in this country has, despite it all, not only survived, but even thrived in certain areas. That is why individuals who are working today are able to say that Dr. King's dream lives on. And part of the beauty of an annual celebration like this one is that each year we can use this occasion both to be backward and forward-looking. Looking for inspiration, but also looking for a blueprint for each of us who seek to advance Dr. King's quest for justice and equality, a quest that is ongoing, not only for African Americans, but also for countless others who are oppressed in this country and around the world. So I've been led to think about how Africans and African Americans have accomplished what they have in the United States, in the hope that it will give me some guidance for my life and the life of this country, and that I might share some of that guidance with you today. How is it that despite slavery and despite continuing oppression, we are here to celebrate resilience and contribution in the face of it all? I'm reminded of one of the two songs that the Queen of Gospel and good friend of Dr. King, Mahalia Jackson, sang at the March on Washington. It's actually one of my mother's favorite songs, How I Got Over. And the beginning of the song says simply, how I got over, how did I make it over? You know my soul looks back and wonder, how did I make it over? That question, how did I make it over? And its collective parallel, how did we make it over, is a revealing one, not just in looking backward at our past, but also looking at the future. So this being Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I'd like to take a look at how I think he might have answered that question, of how we made it here, and perhaps more importantly, how we might get from here to there. Like any good Baptist or any good lawyer, if you want to know how a writer would have answered a question, you look first at what they wrote before. And we know that Dr. King was a prolific writer, and we know that Dr. King was a prolific orator. So I started my journey to answer this question of how we made it over with an adventure through his sermons. And I started with the sermons and not the speeches for a reason. Because as Dr. King said, in the quiet recesses of his heart, he was fundamentally a clergyman, a Baptist preacher. It was those quiet recesses of his heart, well before he became the famous Dr. King that we know now, that produced a sermon called The 3 Dimensions of a Complete Life. We know that this was an important sermon to Dr. King for at least a couple of reasons. First, this was the sermon that he preached as his trial sermon before he was ever elected the pastor at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. So we know he cared a lot about this sermon because he needed this sermon in order to get his job. He wouldn't have been the pastor at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church if this sermon wasn't any good. And second, this was a sermon that he preached every year after that for the rest of his life. The last time he preached this sermon was April 9, 1967, almost a year to the day before he was assassinated. And I imagine that had he not been assassinated, he may have preached this sermon again in April of 1968. Iterating on and repeating this sermon every year wasn't mandated by any liturgy. It was something that Dr. King did because he wanted to do it, or maybe because he felt called to do it. I like to think that it was the latter, that like all of us, Dr. King was wrestling with the concept of what it means to live the life that God has called you to live in every respect. That he mulled this over in his mind every year while he edited the sermon, that he would be glad to revisit the topic after each tumultuous year of his short but impactful life, hoping that his restlessness about how to fulfill the call of his life would one year be replaced by peace. I believe that image of a man who has come to symbolize so much about the struggle for the soul of our nation, struggling internally with who he is meant to be and what he is meant to do, can be instructive for each of us. So I hope that you'll let me spend my time this morning talking with you about what Dr. King described as the complete life, the length, the breadth, and the height. First, I want to explain why I've decided to focus on our individual lives, when the theme of the program would seem to lend itself so much to discussion of our collective action, both over the years and going forward. And that's because I believe, as Dr. King said, that social progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals. It's easy to look backward and see the collective groups, see the governments, see the movements, but all of that action started with individual people deciding what to make of each of their own lives. In his time, Dr. King was a powerful individual contributor. And in the 3 dimensions of a complete life, he exhorted us to also be individual contributors by considering the length of life, the inward concern for how far one can go for the sake of your own individual ambition, but also the breadth of life, the outward concern for the welfare of others, and the height of life, what he described as the upward reach for God. The length of life, that inward concern for one's own welfare that pushes a life forward, is important. Dr. King said in a speech about economic justice that it's all right to talk about long white robes over yonder and all of its symbolism, but ultimately, people want some suits and some dresses and some shoes to wear down here too. Dr. King called it a rational and a healthy self-interest that makes us desire and pursue economic self-sufficiency. And I want to drill down on that for any students who are in the audience today. You might believe, based on the introduction, that because I'm a public servant, I'm going to tell everyone they need to be a public servant, but that's not the case. I'm a public servant now, and I feel called to be a public servant in this particular cultural moment. But I started my career at a large law firm, and I'm saying to you that you don't have to deny yourself the ability to sustain yourself or your family in order to live a complete life or a life that God has ordained. And if you are a black student, you're not required to forego any opportunity that you want to pursue in order to add to the legacy of our people in this country. That pursuit of economic self-sufficiency can assist in our discovery of a larger calling. I wouldn't have the skills or the tools that I have now if I hadn't pursued economic self-sufficiency first. Dr. King explained that we must be so concerned about ourselves that we set out early in life to discover what we are made for. And when we discover what we are made for, we can then use that discovery to drive us forward through the length of life. But Dr. King also called for us to do more, to live for more than ourselves and our families, to live for all of humanity, which is where I'd like to spend most of my time today. It's relatively easy to put oneself first, to live the length of life. But for some reason, we as human beings sometimes have trouble reaching very far outside of ourselves to try to live the breadth of life. I say that because Dr. King's vision of serving humanity involves more than just paying tithes or giving money to charity. Dr. King spoke of a dangerous altruism. Of course, he not only spoke it, but also lived it, surviving a stabbing, multiple bombings, and constant threats to his life. But the danger that many people are avoiding today isn't limited to the slim risk that any of us would be recognized, let alone targeted for a political assassination. It's danger not to one's life, but to one's position in life. Dr. King called for us to reject this fear and avoidance in order to exhibit that dangerous altruism. An altruism that's not done from the comfort of your own home or from the comfort of your own church or from the comfort of your own community. It's an altruism that's, when done properly, takes you out of all of your comfort zones. Dr. King once said, and we must know on some positions, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there are times when you must take a stand that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but you must do it because it is right. Those words might not seem particularly radical to us now. Dr. King was standing up for racial justice, which most of us will now say was the right stand to take. Indeed, the legacy of Dr. King in the last 20 years or so has become one of America's best examples of revisionist history. Schools teach our children that Dr. King defeated a few bad segregationist actors by standing up to them, non-violently of course, that a lone rogue gunman targeted him, and that the nation universally mourned his loss. But none of this is true. Fighting segregation, let alone fighting for true equality, wasn't safe or politic or popular in the general public at the time. In an early 1968 Harris poll, just before he was assassinated, Dr. King had a 75% disapproval rating in the United States. People say we live in a highly polarized time, and I checked the Harris polls up until last week, and I couldn't find a president, any president, including Nixon right before he resigned, who had a 75% disapproval rating. But Dr. King did. He had that disapproval rating because fighting for justice and equality isn't popular. That's the difference between charity and justice. Charity makes us feel great. Justice, if we are the ones benefiting from injustice, is the opposite. There's a saying that says, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. And I don't mean that to be directed at any one group. All of us have privilege of one sort or another, whether it's based on our race, gender, sexual orientation, class, or being able-bodied. Dr. King knew that. He said, God is the only being in the universe that can say, I am, and put a period behind it. Each of us sitting here today has to say, I am because of my parents, I am because of certain environmental conditions, I am because of certain hereditary circumstances, I am because of God. God is the only being that can just say, I am, and stop right there. But some of us also want to stop right there, because it's easier to live in the comfort of feeling that we deserve something than it is to live in the discomfort of knowing that we don't. It's easier for a relatively wealthy person to give money to a public school's fundraiser than it is to advocate for equal funding and equal opportunity at all schools. We have gotten used to benefiting from the privilege that we have for ourselves and our families and giving our leftovers as charity to those who can't. And that's a hard habit to break. I believe that is why America has taken to teaching instead that what Dr. King was really fighting for has either already been accomplished or will be accomplished if we could all just be colorblind. It's not that simple. Dr. King was never Black Santa Claus spreading good cheer and dreams of children dancing in a Technicolor field like in The Sound of Music, but with children of all different colors. That's not what gets someone assassinated. He was assassinated for fighting a fight that is hard to win and one that will inevitably make some people feel as if they have lost. That fight is not over, and it wasn't then and isn't now colorblind. The fight for humanity has to include everyone, but it also has to recognize those who are differently situated than we are. In 1967, Dr. King was advocating for a universal basic income. He wasn't advocating for limiting it to African Americans, but he also wasn't colorblind. He recognized that lifting the nation's poorest out of poverty would disproportionately help African Americans, saying that it's a nice thing to say to people that you ought to lift yourself by your own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his bootstraps. And the fact is that millions of Negroes, as a result of centuries of denial and neglect, have been left bootless. They find themselves impoverished aliens in this affluent society, and there is a great deal that the society can and must do if the Negro is to gain the economic security he needs. It's now 2019, and we still haven't done justice, economic or otherwise. Decades ago, Richard Pryor joked about a Black person going into a courtroom. You go down there looking for justice, that's what you're gonna find, just us. It's funny because it's true, and it's still true. In 2019, we haven't done justice, and we haven't done equality. In almost every area in which Dr. King worked, education, voting, housing, salaries, we haven't done equality. We haven't done it for African Americans or for other groups who are oppressed. Instead, we've taken to telling our children that we have. We've taken to distorting the legacy of Dr. King to try to support the fallacy that we have. When I was young and my sister had an idea that I didn't like, I used to tell her sarcastically, let's don't and say we did. And that's what America has done. We didn't and we say we did. And saying that we did stops us from doing what we are called to do. Just as Dr. King said in 1967, all the signs of our time indicate that this is a dark hour in the life of America. But Dr. King also said that we've got to struggle to the end, to see it through. And to do that, we have to indict our shortcomings. We have to resolve to do better at the breath of life. But we can't stop there. We have to have the resilience to keep going, past resolving to do better and to actually doing better. To obtain that resilience, we reach forward, we reach outward, and we reach upward. When Mahalia Jackson asked how we got over, no small part of the answer was and is faith. Faith that leads to perseverance, faith that lets us run the race and see what the end is going to be. Dr. King's personal faith kept him going, allowing him to have faith in the future because he could say, I don't know what the future holds, but I do know who holds the future. In the 3 dimensions of a complete life, he said that if we are to live a complete life, let us discover him. And if you discover this God, things will change in your life. People all around you will wonder how you are able to make it amid the dark and desolate moments. And isn't that the African American experience in America? Aren't we constantly wondering how we were, how we are, how we will be able to make it over? Dr. King had an answer for us. He said, "Love yourself. You are commanded to do that. That is the length of life. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. You are commanded to do that. That is the breath of life. But never forget that there is a first and even greater commandment. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. That is the height of life. And when you do this, you'll live the complete life." I haven't yet lived the complete life. That may be part of why I so identify with this young pastor's sermon, maybe even more than the more famous one he delivered before his life came to an end. I've been to the mountaintop. I haven't been to the mountaintop. I haven't looked over. I'm not even sure, and I'm not going to tell you, that we as a people will get to the promised land of equality and justice. But I do know what generations of oppressed people all over the world have known, whether they were trying to make it over the Edmund Pettus Bridge or trying to make it over the Red Sea. And that is, as Psalm 27:13 says, "I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." Thank you.
And as one who entered William Jewell 50 years before you graduated, I'm so happy that we have graduates like you out in the world today. I know you have enjoyed and profited from being here today, and now you have a chance to help for next year. This is the time for the free will offering. We need your offerings for the scholarship that is given each year, for the expenses of the program each year. And so the baskets are going to be passed. We ask you to give in order that we can continue these King Day activities.
Let us pray. O Lord our God, you bless our human race with men and women of peace who rise above the rest of us and the conflicts and tensions of this world. They're born in many nations and under various religious influences. Their names are very familiar and not so. Names we've mentioned this morning and others, including Tutu and Williams and Anthony, Wilberforce, Tolstoy, Yuchevsky, Gandhi, and King, to remember some. We thank you for the hope and passion they create in us in the way they live, and some died to achieve peace. With no exceptions, each of them are flawed and imperfect human beings, but they leaned into your calling to pursue peace at all cost. Today, we again remember the dream you gave Dr. King, a society where lion and lamb would lie down together, and the children of all races and backgrounds would mingle together in a sweet harmony of spirit. Help us to walk together, pray together, sing together, live together until that day when all God's children, regardless of skin color or accent or country of origin or religion or orientation or age or piercings and tats or the balance of our bank book or any other thing we use to wall ourselves from others, that day when all God's children will rejoice in one common bond of peace in the reign of you, our Lord and God. Amen.